Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the International Dental Student Trends Podcast. I am Dr. Aman, your host. I want to express my gratitude for the positive feedback after our first episode. Thank you. Like I said in our first episode, our goal is to offer valuable strategies and perspectives so that you can improve your application experience. Whether you're just starting out or you're deeply engaged in this process, I believe the discussions on this podcast will be valuable for you. We are in the middle of the application cycle, and I completely understand that getting into dental school may seem like a daunting goal, but it is an attainable goal. There are success stories and journeys of other applicants that prove it. So your application and as well as interview are both great opportunities to demonstrate who you are. And the best way to showcase yourself is by sharing your experience and providing examples from those experiences. In today's episode, we are going to talk about interview preparation. The way I've structured the episode, we are going to talk about 3 different topics. The first one is trends related to interview preparation. So I'm going to talk about 3 most common trends that I've seen with students preparing for interviews. The second would be some tips to prepare for interview. And the third would be some prompts for your reflection. So my philosophy of teaching is to provide resources and information so that you can find meaningful ways to improve your application cycle. So with the last segments of prompts for reflection, there are 10 questions, and the idea is for you to reflect on your journey to understand yourself a little bit better and write some points for those answers. So one of the habits that I'm working on is journaling. It sometimes helps me understand myself better, and that's where this idea has originated from. Let's start with our first segment, which is trends about the interview preparation. The first and the most common trend that I've seen is actually not being able to present an authentic self. By which I mean is that the answers do not truly reflect the person's journey. What I've seen is often they have influenced by hearing someone else's story or answer. So as a result, what the students do is that they tailor their experience to match those stories. And this showcase, especially during an interview, because it doesn't feel genuine. You have to be mindful that everyone has a different journey. Hence, if asked a question, each one of us will respond differently to it because the examples are coming from our life experiences. The second trend is being underconfident. I have seen students with amazing experience, but they do not believe in those experiences. And in my understanding, if you do not believe in your experiences, it's very difficult to make someone else believe in your experiences. I think what's happening over here is actually comparison. So students look at their experience and compare it to others' experience, and they just believe that maybe their experience wasn't good enough. If you look at an experience and you learned a lesson and the experience was meaningful in a way, it's a good experience. So try to not put yourself down and see what you have learned from those experiences. The third trend that I've seen is speaking fast. In my opinion, speaking fast does not relate or equate to being fluent. There are 2 downsides, according to me, when you're speaking too fast in an interview. One is that it might be difficult to understand and you might lose the interviewer's attention. The second is it may come across as being nervous, that you just want to quickly deliver this answer and get out of the situation. Slowing down or taking a bit more time before you start answering your interview question gives you a little space to understand and process your answer. Let's also acknowledge that a lot of us are coming from a different country, so there could be some words or the way we express could be differently. So speaking slowly also helps the interviewer to comprehend the information that you're delivering. Now moving to our second segment, which we will be discussing tips to prepare for an interview. The first tip is when you're preparing for an interview, write points. The way this helps is that when you're delivering an answer, for example, you have 3 points in your mind for a specific question. So when you're answering, you're going to make effort to talk about those 3 points. But every time you talk about those 3, they are going to come a bit differently. So it doesn't feel like a rehearsed answer. The second tip for interview preparation is to reflect on your own journey when you're preparing. And this is where the third segment will play a role. The third point when it comes to preparing is always give examples. That's the way you will stand out. Always give example. To demonstrate the importance of giving examples, let's take a simple conversation, an everyday conversation. For example, I went for hiking and I came back. You asked me, how was your hiking trip? I can answer, it was nice, a bit hot. The mountains and rivers look beautiful. I will go there again. Or I could answer a little bit different. I could say, the place was beautiful. Even though it was hot, the shades from the tree made it easier to hike. When we started our hike, actually, we saw a herd of deer. It seems like they were having a good time. And half an hour into our hike, we saw a mama and a baby bear. And these 2 experiences made my day and as well as my trip. If you look at this conversation, it would be easy to remember the second conversation than the first one, because the second conversation gives a bit more of detailed example of what had happened during the trip. So yes, try to give example with every question that possibly you can, unless and until you can. The fourth tip is actually more of a mindset that I'm advising for a change. So when asked a question in an interview, rather than thinking that this has not happened to me, instead try to focus on finding an example that's closest to that experience they are asking for. This has happened to me where if asked a question, I do not have an answer, or I think like, this has never happened to me. What happens is that my brain starts to give me arguments or more of like suggestions of, this has never happened, and it starts blocking me from thinking of an answer. So that's why I think the best way is to say an example that's closest and be honest, and tell them that this has never happened, but the closest that it has happened, or the closest I can think of an example, is this. The last tip is, for some questions, it's especially those that have multiple points that you want to cover, it's a good habit to answer those questions with reasons. So you could say, my 3 reasons, or for this question, I'm going to give 3 reasons. And my first reason is, second reason is, or third reason is, or firstly, I want to talk about this, secondly, about this, thirdly, about this. What happens is when you have reasons or rationales to prove a certain point, you're actually preparing your interviewer to, in a sense of like, okay, I'm going to talk about 3 things. So they are going to pay attention for those 3 things. But if you don't entail that from beginning, you might lose someone's attention. So those were the tips for interview preparation. Now let's go to our last segment of this podcast, which is the prompt questions. I would suggest that as you listen to these questions, you write points. So as I go about these questions, I'll say the first question is this, the second question is this, and I would advise you to write something about those questions in points form. I am not discussing those questions in this podcast, just for you guys to work on and not make your answers biased or get influenced by my discussion points. Decided not to include that aspect or the discussion aspect with this podcast. But that being said, I will be releasing the podcast episode for discussion very soon. Let's begin with prompt questions. Question 1. There are 3 different aspects of dentistry that I appreciate or admire. Out of those three, which is the one that inspires me the most? Question 2. How do I envision my ideal work as a US trained dentist? What will be 3 of my professional and personal goals? Question 3. What professional experience am I proud of, and what makes it significant to me? Question 4. Is there a specific habit of mine that I would like to change for the better? Question 5. What positive habits do I possess that I want to continue cultivating? Question 6. In what ways can I leverage my experience to make meaningful contributions to dental program? Number 7. In group settings, it's important to be mindful of the personal qualities that help individuals excel as a team member. What are 2 of my qualities that can help in a group setting? Number 8. What are the 2 top qualities that I consider crucial for dentists, and how am I incorporating them in my professional development? Number 9. What kind of favorable impact will participating in this IDP or advanced standing program have on my professional journey? Number 10. What aspects of myself do I want to share during an interview to showcase my character and experience? Take some time, answer these questions. In our next episode, we will talk about some discussion points on these questions. This is the end of our second episode. We will be returning shortly. In my understanding, the key to successful application lies in preparation, sincere self-reflection, and a genuine representation of yourself and your aspirations. Every step you take brings you closer to your goal. Goodbye for now.